You started coding at 16 years old and you worked as a software engineer at an AI company in Silicon Valley. And there were two introductory points to your coding education. The first was learning website development and Web 2 coding. And the second was learning smart contracts and Web 3 coding. Why did zombies play such a big role in you becoming a developer?
I have no idea. I think the zombie life chose me. And for some reason, if you have any type of education out there that have zombies as part of the learning, I am going to become addicted to that gamified learning experience.
Yeah, so talk a little bit about how you got introduced through the zombie life.
Okay, so basically, when I was 16, I stumbled upon Code Academy, which I think it was just launching at that time. This was like 2012, I believe, 2011, 2012. And I stumbled upon Code Academy back then. For some context, I've always been very career driven. I knew I wanted to have a good career, be able to afford a good life. I have family in Venezuela, so it's always in the back of my mind that eventually I'm going to become a provider, right? And that's always been a thought in my mind since I was very, very young. So I would always Google the top 10 careers that someone could do that were good, that would be here in like 10 years. And within those, software development was always one on that list. So I think by me searching among those keywords, I started getting ads. And I got an ad for Code Academy. And I just started trying things out. It was, you could get like, I think it was free at the time, and it was something like coding, and I was learning JavaScript, and it was like a zombie game that was happening, and basically you're learning how to code but you're moving zombies along their path, and it was really fun. It For me, it was just like a game. I grew up playing Nintendo, Sega, like you name it. So it was a game for me. It was also really, it was a feeling of empowerment to be able to build something with my hands, me, the little 16-year-old. Having that type of power was really attractive to me, which is funny to say. But it was also just the thought of, hey, if I learn this skill, I can also do websites on the side, right? And I can start marketing that on Craigslist or whatever. So that was kind of the introduction. And beyond the financial incentive, it was more that it was like really fun. And I always laugh because I always remember of a post that I did on Facebook back then, and I posted a screenshot of just CSS code, which is just styling code. But I thought it was so cool, and I posted that, and I had like this mysterious caption for it. And it, obviously later on when I learned way more, I'm like, oh my God, it's so embarrassing that I did that. But it was just the feeling of power that got me to it. And I wanted to pursue it in school, but I couldn't really find what was the equivalent in Puerto Rico. And I went to a university, they weren't able to guide me well. So I just kept doing it on the side as something fun to do, and, just doing it by myself and trying to get people to let me make them websites and pursue that. But I never really thought that it would be a job, right? Like the career of a software developer wasn't something that I was exposed to. So for me, it was like, okay, I can do websites, I can sell that, I can do things for myself.
I love the way that you just kind of like take control that way. And it kind of leads into part of what I've been so impressed with you is the way that you execute, and you're just always doing something new, and you're always building, and you're communicating. You're kind of like a one woman wrecking crew in a lot of ways. And at that same time, when you were 16 and you started coding, you also emancipated from your family. And I'm not sure how much you've talked about this publicly, but do you think that's part of where your independence and your strong sense of self comes from?
So I did emancipate at 16, but I feel like if I could have emancipated at 10, I would have done it. I always had a very big sense of independence. I knew what I wanted. I mean, it's like funny, but I think it's funny to me. But I like when I was probably like 7 years old, I tried to run away from my house in Venezuela, and it was just like the city's just a loop where we lived. So I don't know. That's why I'm like running away in my bike, just like going around the loop. And I think I just always had the sense of I want to do something that's greater than what I can do if I stay where I'm at. And that was always the motivator. I always really excelled in everything that I would do. And I think discipline is one of the biggest roles that help me get to where I want. I'm really disciplined, and once I have a goal, I hyper focus and I lose sight of everything else until I get to where I want to be. And I also have a strong conviction in spirituality, and I do believe that the more that we create an environment of positive thoughts, positive people, you surround yourself with people that inspire you, you read books, you listen to podcasts, you talk to others about those aspirations that you have. I think all of that plays into who I am today.
Yeah, and you have this great dichotomy, I think, of you're very feminine and you have a great fashion sense and you're beautiful, and then you have this masculine side too, which really like enables you to get a lot done. You grew up with two brothers and you were the only girl, and so you're used to kind of playing with the boys, and that's clearly translated into your career. And you've become an excellent networker as well in a very male dominated field. So I'm curious if you have any advice for women when it comes to dealing with men in business.
Yeah, I mean, I will say I used to be really intimidated, and I definitely had to learn to get to where I'm at, right? Like, I think in some part of your life, whether that happens at 21, 25, 30, you might think you just have to be beautiful and agreeable, and that will get you to where you want to be. Or you might think you just have to be agreeable and, just let other people guide you to where you should go. And for me, I always knew that what I wanted to do would be beyond my looks. And I've done so many different roles and so many different careers, and from all of those, the ones that I love the most are the ones that are based on just my skills, right? Like coding is my favorite thing to do, etc. But within the networking side, I would say for any woman out there, one, just don't, you need to stand up for yourself. You need to know your worth. You need to establish clear boundaries. And you also have to be, in my opinion, you have to be nice when those boundaries are maybe stretched, but also be able to tell someone in a very nice and in a very nice manner, right? Like, hey, this is going across my boundaries. And I've had people that would suggest otherwise, right? Like, be aggressive, yell, scream, hit, punch. And for me, I think at the end of the day, for myself, I'm still a lady and I'm still going to participate within whatever industry I'm in. So, I just try to do things a little bit more formal than others. And in the beginning, especially in Web3 and in tech, they see a blonde girl walking around. It's automatically a diversity hire. It's automatically someone that's there with their partner. It's automatically the marketing person, the arts person. It's never, oh, she might be a CEO. Oh, she might be a software engineer. Um, so I would say take that to your advantage, but also understand that because of your looks or your gender, sometimes people might treat you differently, and stand up to that. And one of my biggest like memories was just starting in Web3. I had been, investing in the industry. I have a lot of friends from that industry, but I went to my first solo experience and I met someone there. We became friends. So key, if you go somewhere solo, try to make a friend. Try to make a friend. Be nice to people. I made a friend randomly. We started talking. We had some things in common, and I told him, it was like my mail. I said, "Hey, I'm feeling a little bit intimidated. Do you mind going and networking with me for a little bit while I kind of like loosen up?" And he was like, "Yeah, it's fine. We can tag team this, right?" He was also nervous. It was also his first time. He was also alone, so it was perfect. So we start walking around, and automatically, every single person that maybe I wanted to talk to would only talk to him. And they would ask him what he's doing. Meanwhile, I'm building a project. I'm a founder. I'm a software engineer. I have so many things to offer and talk about, but I was seen as a plus one. And after a while, I mean, I would always extend my hand, try to get into the conversation. I would not let that discourage me. And after a while, I did told him, I'm like, hey, pause. have you noticed this habit that's been happening? Have you noticed this behavior? And he had not. After a few more hands that we shaken and a few more conversations, he came back to me. He's like, yeah, I can see what's happening. And it was very nice because after he noticed that pattern too, then he would make it a point of being like, by the way, like she is a founder, she is a CEO. So I would say, find allies when you're in that position where you're still not confident enough to just go out there and be that person that you are and you're more in your shell, and keep working towards it. Because at this point, I feel very confident in whatever room I walk to. I know who I am, I show my personality, I understand that every single person I'm meeting, I can either learn something from them, I can maybe connect them with something, or vice versa, right? Like maybe I know someone that needs their services, maybe I have some advice. Like I just see everything as an opportunity. So really focusing on that growth mindset and abundance mindset now when I go into networking patterns.
I love that because I think it starts with what you said in the beginning of that was you basically build yourself up first, right? So you have this confidence that's based in competence. So you're not just going in there, you know that you have a lot of value to bring. You know that you're a part of something that you can add to the conversation, you can add to their project, whatever, like you have something to offer. And from that, start to make allies with the men. Like, don't look at it as like men versus women, and don't get intimidated by the fact that maybe you're overlooked in the beginning. Stay in your truth, stay in the value that you bring, and then find other men who see that and help them, let them help you integrate if necessary. So it's a very like tactical plan, and I think obviously it's worked incredibly well for you. And I want to rewind just a little bit, even further back to when you mentioned kind of like running away at 7 and biking around town, but even before that, from 3 to 7, I found out that you lived on a boat and you were homeschooled from there. And that's an incredibly unique and interesting life experience. You're based in Miami now, but I'm wondering, like, what was that life like on the boat? And then also, do you aspire to be a digital nomad and like kind of live on the road or maybe even out on the water? Or is that something that you want to stay home base now?
Yeah, so you did really good research, by the way. So yeah, basically my stepdad had a boat. We grew up on the boat, and we would do our studies for English. It's not my first language, and just my homeschooling from my school. So I would say like 30% in normal school, and then the rest we would be on the boat, visiting islands. And I think one of the really awesome things about that is that it really made me appreciate culture from a really young age. It also helped me see people like who they truly are, and just see how different we were. So I always had an admiration for different ethnicities, different languages. I don't know. I think I had a lot of life appreciation from that. And then if I would love to be a digital nomad, I think I consider myself to be one. I even as a software engineer, I was remote, so I was able to travel anywhere I would want to at the later stage of COVID, of course. And to this point, I've traveled around. I don't know that I could do constant travel while working because I really do love to travel and explore cities. But I don't know. I think I'm in a place where I really value stability. Um, as I have a lot of things that I like to do within my day, from like working out to what I eat. I think I really love stability and having a real routine.
I've been on the road for the last like 2 months, and it's definitely like it's a gift that you're able to do that. I know you were just in China, and it's fun to be able to get up and travel, but also it does mess with your routine a little bit. Like I really haven't, outside of the spaces we've done together, I haven't really even done spaces in the last like 3 weeks, and it's kind of like killed my growth a little bit on X. So that's not an excuse as much as it's just something that I have to figure out a way to adjust to. So as all like the benefits of the digital nomad life are apparent, it's also like a challenge at the same time. But it's great because with the traveling, I get to meet a lot of people and involve myself in different communities in real life. You've been building communities for a long time. You had a Web 2 education focused community. And then in 2021, you kind of decided to start educating and onboarding people into Web 3. And then you built a thriving community there. So Why is community such an important part of everything you do?
That's a great question. And I think it's corny for a lot of people, but the way that I think about it is from a young age, I was always traveling, right? So my family was my straight community. And later on we moved to Puerto Rico and we moved constantly and I went to different schools and I would always have friends, lose friends, have friends, lose friends, right? Like it's not how we are now. You have a phone, like it wasn't like that back then. And I don't want to age myself, but it's true. Later on, I moved at 16. I went on a complete hiatus from everyone, and I feel like I wanted to rebirth who I was in a way, but that ended up making me be isolated because I wasn't staying in touch with people. And from being isolated and knowing what it's like to do things alone, I think that's where I really came into valuing how important is community and to have people around you and to have people that you align with and that you can kind of have as your trusted circle. So I would say me having a community or me building a community or me being part of a community is a very selfish thing that happens to benefit everyone because I do it for myself. I love making friends. And, a lot of you have heard me. I say, oh, I have a lot of friends on X. And, I know people that call them fans and I know people that is just followers or audience. And for me, I love to think that I have so many friends everywhere in the world. And I think in a way, I've been living by myself for over 12 years now. And I've moved a lot within those times too. So building a community for me, it's really meaningful to have an awesome group of people that all align within each other, that all support each other, and that you can call a friend. Like if I wanted to jump on a voice call with someone right now, I'm pretty sure I could do that. And for me, that's a blessing.
It's incredible what the internet allows us to do, whether it's just picking up the phone, like you say, and just having people there. And you also mentioned like people that are aligned with your interests and like minded. It's like you're not just barred into who's around you, who's at your school, who's at your workplace. It's like you can literally go out and just find people that like the shit you do, that think the way you do, that want the same life you do. And you can build communities, you can build circles of people that not only are there to talk about those things, but support you, that understand your journey. Like I know for me, a lot of my home friends and even my family, they don't, they support me, but they don't fully understand like the grind of a creator and of an entrepreneur. And you just find those people and you bring them around you and you say like it's selfish, but we all act out of selfishness anyway. So it's like, it's even if you do something for someone else, it's because it makes you feel good at the end. So it's like we all, we're all putting ourselves number one. And but you don't have to do that, and I think you do a great job at that. And you've been able to turn your community into a business as well, and continue to give back and have that mutual value exchange. Where you founded an NFT project called Crypto Tech Women, and the mint for that NFT. If you're not familiar with Web3 and NFT minting, it's basically just like the creation of the NFTs. There's like a launch event, and you sold it out within 24 hours of the public launch. And so a lot of people might think that, oh, this happened so fast, right? But you were building that community for months beforehand. So for people that are launching products or of any kind, really, what are the things that you think they should consider as they build up hype towards the main event?
Yeah, I mean, I think one, having this definitive goals and just breaking down your plan for me, it was super crucial. Maybe it's because I'm a control freak, but for me, it was super crucial to know every single step of the way, what was needed, how to communicate with the people. Like, I just love defining everything. And that's been me as I don't know if the software engineer in me, but define everything for what you're doing. Why are you doing it? Who are the people? What are their habits? What are their interests? Why do you even care about this? Right? And create that book, create that paper for you to really understand who is that persona. For me, I was very lucky that I was also passionate about the subject because, if you have a passion for the subject, it's not like you're just trying to make money from it, then you kind of immerse yourself even more. But one of the biggest things is to not give up. It's hard. And I can tell you, I started building the community in September or August 21, and my launch was in February like 26, 22, right? And I can tell you, up until December, it felt really, really lonely because even though numbers were going up and people were talking about it and the community kept growing, it was a very slow growth. I will say the growth was so slow. But then January hit and it just like boomed, right? And I can promise you there were so many times when I thought, no one cares about this, right? Like, no one cares about this. I should just stop. It's consuming so much time. I have a full time job. I was working a full time job at the time. And if you're a software engineer at a startup, you know, full time is like 16, 17 hours a day, right? Especially if you love your job, which I did. So it was lonely in so many ways, which is again tie back to community, why it's so important to have people with aligned incentives as you. I would talk to my girlfriends and we would talk about it, and they were trying to help as well. But it was defeating in many ways. Many times, you know, you only see one person or three people or 10 people, and you wonder if anyone cares. But that one, three, 10 can turn into 20, 50, 100, 1,000. And that was the case for me. But I think it's because we have a big appreciation for vanity numbers. So we think, oh, if we just have 1,000 people, everything will be better. But you know, at the end of the day, it's better to have 10 really passionate people within your community or that love your product or that love who you are versus having 1,000 that don't really care about, you know, any of that. They're just there. They're silent followers, a silent audience, a silent community. It's not really ideal. So I would say take it easy on you. Be appreciative of every single person that's showing up and that's showing interest. You're doing it for them. You can't be worrying about who doesn't care and who doesn't want to be part of it. Also, make sure that your incentives that you're giving them are aligned with what you expect. Make sure to have a plan. Make sure to have a plan when things are going great, but also make sure to have a plan when things are not going great and when things are turning to shit and you really have to figure out what's the next move. And at the end of the day, I never really, I don't know, a lot of people don't like this, but I never really judge hardly the people that quit because I've been through depression, I've been through the anxiety, and I've been able to come through it because I had a community, because I had people that helped me through it and that inspired me and that motivated me. And I knew I had accountability with the people that I brought in, right? I'm like, I have people here, I have to do this for them, but I also have to do it for myself. So I would say it's a tough process, but you need to have goals and you need to have numbers ready. And I think the numbers part is one of the biggest thing. Like I knew I had an amount I wanted to sell, so I started doing the math of how many people I needed to have at the minimum, at the maximum, right? Like I sold 8,888 pieces, which were really like 8,820 because we saved some. And I'm like, you know, at the minimum, you need one person to buy. And then if you start thinking about the people that will say they'll buy, but don't buy, okay, now you need how many more? Ideally, maybe one person buys two, right? So, and it was just a numbers game in a way. But again, you can do all the numbers you want, but if you don't have an incentive that will pull in those numbers, there isn't really anything you have to do. So you have to be really realistic of if what you're giving them good enough.
So I'm hearing two main things. One is like have a plan, have a detailed plan, and have a contingency plan as well. So making sure that you know exactly what you're getting into and how you're going to navigate that. But also there's this idea of depth over width in terms of the audience and making sure that you're really connecting with people and that they see you for who you are and that they understand exactly what you're doing and that you're pouring into the people that are showing they care and not necessarily always, you know, grabbing someone in and then it's like, where's the next person, or trying to convince someone that doesn't, or it's like, be grateful for who you have and continue to pour into them. And word of mouth can actually take over at that point. They can bring new people in for themselves and help you
Yeah.
that way. And X is really a great place to build relationships like that and get attention for your brand, be that top of funnel. And similar to me, I know you're a big fan of spaces, and you and I have hosted a bunch of them together now. And soon they're going to be adding video and all this stuff. What's your overall take on spaces as a tool for growth and for influence for your brand?
I think Spaces is a great way to grow. I've done both spaces with the brand and spaces as a person. What I've noticed is that people love the spaces that are from the person that leads the brand, not necessarily the brand, because there might be that view of if I go into this space hosted by a brand, they're just selling me on things, right? So if you want to have your brand be your co-host and maybe highlight it, you can do that. But I find it more useful to be that person that's leading the conversation, that's putting your face out there, that you're showing people you're a real human and incorporating your brand into everything that you do and kind of becoming a thought leader, a key opinion leader first, and then bringing your brand into it. I actually did it reverse. I used to have my audience on Instagram. I did not convert my audience, start a whole new audience on Twitter or X, and I started leading the charge with my brand's account, right? So my own account wasn't really being active in so many ways, like at all, and not even for spaces. And when this whole shift came, I saw the importance of, you having a brand yourself, um, because your brand may grow up to a certain point, but if you can gather attention and you can show your knowledge in whatever topic you're doing, I think it's a way easier conversion than trying to sell a brand directly versus people getting to know you, loving who you are, seeing your intellect, what you can offer, and then understanding the offerings that you may have, right? And that might be whatever it is. So don't fade spaces. Spaces has been a key to grow for so many accounts. I mean, imagine the power that you have when you can start a space and have people from all over the world join your space, join you to speak, create that connection with them. That your tweets simply cannot do that. I understand you can create very emotional tweets and make them relatable, and there's a lot of power in that, but there's more power in the social audio aspect of it and having that connection with someone.
Yeah, I love when you say social audio, you're speaking my language because it's social is the real part, right? It's like you can put out a tweet and more than other social media for sure, you can like have a conversation in the comments and go up and back, but it's still not really that live interaction. It's not that energy exchange. It's not that deep connection that you can build with people in real time. And that's really what Spaces allows us to do as a live streaming tool that has a lot more up and back capabilities than any live stream platforms in the past. Um, and there's even, of course, deeper connection you can make off of that is kind of taking things offline. And you and I met a few weeks back at a happy hour that you organized in Miami. And then again at a huge event that you launched called Bing Bong, which was fantastic, by the way. And you've become kind of known for bringing people together offline. How important has that been for you, for your brand and for your mission to kind of be a plug and bring people together in the real world?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I've done events that are mainly for my brand, like CTW or Crypto Tech Women, and I used to do them by myself. Eventually, this year I was gonna do a whole other one by myself, and then a group of my friends. Well, one friend actually reached out, said, "Hey, are you doing an event? I think I'm doing one." And then I guess someone else reached out to him with the same thing. And we decided to combine forces and make that into Bing Bong, but also offer, that exclusive access to my community. And I think for me, the power of IRL connections is, as I probably have mentioned 1,000 times, it's really, really, really powerful. And imagine you coming into a networking area and getting to meet all these people, and that feels great, and then you take it into crazy mode and now you're the person organizing the event and curating the audience and curating the experience and curating your list and knowing that the people that can't come into that area, into that event, into that meetup are going to make really good connections. It really, for me, just feels good, to be honest. It just feels good. And as of now, I haven't been doing this to convert my audience into anything else. I've just been doing it because I want to meet up some people, provide a really, really good time. We are definitely not monetizing as much as we could because we spend all our money making sure that like we're offering so many experiences within the events. And I think as of now, it's again another selfish thing that I enjoy doing, whether it's connecting people or me connecting with them. And then eventually, maybe, to be honest, when I think about conversions, I just think there are different types of funnels. And for me, the IRL events are not a funnel that I want to eventually lead into my business. It's a funnel that I want to keep as a fun type of event that people get to meet others and they get to meet us and we create those relationships and keep it as that. I don't think every single thing that you do has to be strategic because you want to do conversions. I think there's more power in building relationships that later on could naturally become that versus building something that has only one purpose and it becomes forced and maybe feels very transactional. I really do love to keep the IRL events to just being something where people are connecting naturally. And if there's any opportunities to talk about brands and what we're doing and maybe what we're doing on the side, that's great. But that's not the main goal as of now for our events.
It's an important point because not everything, as you say, has to be like a direct response kind of interaction. And, the classic quote of like, people don't remember what you say, they remember how you make them feel. And so it's like when you bring them into a in real life scenario where like someone's complete energy and attention is devoted to that hour, that 5 hours that create something, and they leave, and at the very end you say, okay, now everybody sign up for this, and everybody like, and you kind of ruin that feeling where it was like, wow, this was a great time. And I have this like elevated association when I think of Gigi and Bing Bong and crypto tech women versus like, oh, yeah, it was a good time, but then also there's that little nagging thing that it was like, oh, they wanted something from me, and you play this much longer game, which I think is smart. And it's something I'm doing with my brand too. Like I don't really like sell at all in my spaces and stuff like that. It's just like, let's create an environment where people can come together and meet each other and build and connect and talk about what we're doing and help each other grow. And so I love how you're like always doing that. And you're always like challenging people as well by coming to these things and stepping outside their comfort zone. And I think you do that because you do that for yourself a little bit as well. Like I know you're a lifelong learner and you just like, you're constantly kind of pushing the boundaries, and you've taken a lot of online courses as well. I'm curious how you see the future of education, considering that is a big part of your brand, but also your personal strategy and in growth. How does education look like to you from a digital standpoint? How does that play out? And what role do you want to play in that movement?
I mean, I think their education will be disrupted as we know it. I don't think the way that I probably went to school, maybe you did too, right? Where you go into a classroom, you sit, you learn about a bunch of things that maybe don't really have any correlation to anything that we'll ever do or things that we should even know about. And then you spend 8 hours there. You're subject to safety hazards, right? Because you're in these public spaces. And I don't know if this is my loner side thinking, but I really appreciate the part of homeschooling, and I'm not a mom, but eventually when I am, or if I am, I know my kids will be homeschooled. And I think education can really transform a person's life, and that was the reason why I stepped into Web3. I wanted to be able to bridge the gap for those people that come from Web2 that may not really know how to completely jump in or what opportunities are there or what are things happening or what's anything. Because I think one thing about Web3 is that once you're in it, you forget to still have that beginner mindset and be able to onboard people without confusing them. So at least for this next year, we're going to be doing cohorts with CTW, and the details on that will come later on. But it's basically taking people from that non Web3 foundation, taking them in, teaching them about it, and there might be some engineering components to it, to make it fun for those that had always wanted to learn that and never did the jump. But I see myself as playing a part in that. I think it's great to go deeper in the weeds and kind of go from that medium level to expert, even though there's no expert in Web3. But for me, I love to be inclusive and cultivate inclusive spaces. And that for me is bringing in people into an industry that needs people to be, and that there are so many opportunities, and it's an industry that is not going anywhere. So I will still see myself being an onboarder through education for people. Crypto Tech Women is coming out with some programs to be able to elevate that. And you will see my brand shift a little bit because I really do want to focus more on education. I think this year has been an awesome year, and I've been able to really show who I am and show my personality and have fun. And we talk about content creation, and we also talk about nothing at times, and it's been fun and it's been great. But I think for this next year, I kind of want to go down a little bit deeper into educational content, whether that's videos, spaces as we've been doing, podcasts, all of it, and be able to really have a page where people can go and learn something as soon as you get there.
I love it. I love everything that you're doing, Gigi. I love how you inspire, well, you're inspiring me when as I've gotten to know you more and dug deeper into your story. It's amazing how much depth there is there and how many layers to your come up and everything that you're planning on doing. And I see all the seeds being planted and I really respect it. And I also love how you inspire women and minorities to succeed. And it's a lot harder and more, there's a lot more judgment sometimes around smaller communities like those, and they need people like you, and you're stepping up and leading the way with grace. And I love how you bring people together, and you always, like you said, you're having these in-person events and these parties, and you always bring me into your spaces, and I'm just really grateful for you, and I'm grateful that you came on the show today. And I'd love to give you the last word, maybe to offer some words of encouragement to people, whether that's around content or business or life, anything that's been on your mind, and then where people can find you online to connect.
Yeah, I would say some words of encouragement is stop thinking about what others are saying about you. When you become a content creator, people are going to look at you when you're doing your videos and you're walking and you're talking to your phone, and they're going to look at you funny, and that's okay. They don't know where you're going to be at, right? Like, I know you probably feel a certain type of way when you're looking at your phone creating a video. People are looking at you and you are not making money from that, but when you are, that feeling is going to be gone. There's no embarrassment. So just stop thinking about what others are saying or what they're doing or what they don't believe in, and just have confidence and conviction in yourself and who you are.
And where should we send people to connect with you online?
Okay, so definitely connect with me on X or Twitter. It's Gigi Skarlett. I'm sure Greg will pin this up because it's extremely hard for you to understand by me just saying it. And on Instagram, if you want to find me, I also have an account. It's called Gigi Skarlett.
Awesome. I'll link it all in the description. Gigi, thank you so much for everything you're doing. Thank you for coming on the show, and we'll talk soon.